right, hello everyone. Oh, got a couple of people in the chat already. Got Sean L and Brian Wilson. Hello to you both. I assume you're the only ones here because it says, oh, it's just popped up to 3 concurrent viewers. Anyway, while we wait for people to join, check out my dinner. Lovely pizza, wood-fired pizza that I just cooked. It's, ooh. I've got a pizza oven, it's called an uni, and it's capable of cooking one pizza at a time. I've made myself 2 pizzas tonight, and yes, normally I light it with a blowtorch, but then the blowtorch ran out of gas and then had to go chase up gas and couldn't find it and go run down the shops, get fire lighters, and anyway, we're here. G'day Matt and Party Music DJ Hire. And Matt says, good evening Floyd, your pizza looks good, thank you. Yeah, second time I've actually cooked this pizza. It's called a white pizza because it doesn't have a tomato base. What have I put on here? I've put olive oil, a little bit of truffle oil, garlic, pepper, oregano, basil, mushrooms, and prosciutto, and mozzarella. Audio's distorted, is it? I can try turning it down a bit. How's that? 7 people on the stream now. Well, let me finish one slice and then we'll get started. And yes, the microphone's a bit close to me, so you can probably hear me chewing, which I don't know is the best sound, but oh well. Tastes good. Floyd Mukbang says Vanna Bricks. Hello. Well, we'll be eating at least a whole pizza to ourselves tonight. Possibly part of another one. Matt K183 says, I believe that's Lilydale on the thumbnail. When did you take that photo? I'll tell you what, it's not Lilydale. I'll put it back up again and for a little bit, and then you can have a look and tell me if you know. Alright, we're back. J101, or JJ01, yes. It says there's a new chapter for these videos, Cooking with Floyd. Well, it's more like eating with Floyd. You're right, Matt Sandringham. But if people are interested, I will do a cooking episode one day. I think pizza might be a bit difficult to show on camera. Maybe in the summertime when it's a bit brighter at these hours, but I can definitely cook a curry or something, on the live stream. So, let's get started. Let me get up my notes. Okay, level 1 of, so, okay, I guess I should just explain what I'm actually doing. So, yeah, I've sort of named it 10 levels of understanding of a Comeng. We'll be going from level 1, which is the most basic, and up to level 10 of things. And yeah, I mean, feel free to add in anything that you think is appropriate for that level, or any bits and pieces of Comeng knowledge really that you feel like adding to the chat. And if I'm going to cover it in a later level, then I will say so. So, level 1, it's a train. A Comeng is a type of train in Melbourne. Half the audience probably already knew that. In fact, probably more like 90% of the audience already knew that, but hey, if you didn't, now you know. Vandenbrink says, oh, I thought the Comeng was a bus, my bad. Well, level 2 is that, I've sort of already mentioned half of it, that it runs in Melbourne, and they were built in the 1980s at a factory in Dandenong, which was the Comeng factory. Now, they didn't just make Comeng trains, but they made other stuff. Level 3, and I know we're progressing pretty quickly, but it'll slow down. The Dandenong Comeng factory now makes Velocities, currently under the name of Alstom. Previously it was Bombardier, and I don't know who owned it before Bombardier. I think there was someone in between, but Comeng is a hybrid of two words. It is Commonwealth Engineering. Comeng. They're responsible for some trains in New South Wales, but they had a different factory at Granville. That's where a lot of the New South Wales Comeng stuff got made. So Brian Wilson has said, bacon and eggs cooked on the fireman's shovel. Yeah, that's a classic railway meal. I wonder if anyone's tried to cook pizza on a fireman's shovel. I wonder how it would go. And Shauna L says Comengs are very nice cat food tins. Are they now? I don't know if, I don't think Comeng ever got into that sort of stuff, but they're responsible for a few different things. And Brian says, I've driven the 3801 at Albury Station, mind you, only a couple of feet. Well, hey, that's better than me. I haven't seen 3801 in person at all. And JJ says, I reckon a Comeng Cabernet would taste great, washed down with a nice Cab Sav. Okay. Party Music says, I heard the XPT was made at Comeng. Yes, indeed. The XPT was made by Comeng in Granville. So not Dandenong, but same Commonwealth Engineering. And really, I know that this discussion is going to be relatively quick tonight and sort of intended on it, but if you really want to go deep into Comeng, there's a series of books that you can pick up at, I know, Trainworld in Brighton, in Victoria. Go away, Siri. Trainworld in Brighton has some copies I've seen there, but I'm sure they're available at other hobby stores. Vandenbrick says, I suppose the firebox could be just one big pizza oven. I actually do want to try it one day. Try and cook a pizza on a shovel in the firebox of a steam loco. And Vandenbricks also says that in 30 years you may be drinking a Coke can out of part of a Comeng. Huh. Yeah, not even 30 years. I mean, obviously, to those in the know, the Comeng trains are currently being scrapped. And I don't know what the sort of turnaround time of scrap metal is once it's come off once it's been, Comeng has actually been cut up, the train's been cut up. How long does it take for that metal to then be melted down and then rolled into sheet metal again and eventually end up in a Coke can? But I just thought of something. It won't end up in a Coke can. Why? Because a Comeng is made of stainless steel and a Coke can is made of aluminium. So there you go. Would be a cool idea though. I know with planes, there's a company that makes a bit of money by cutting up bits of the plane and turning it into upcycled items and selling them to people, enthusiasts who may want to have a piece of the plane, you know. So it'd be interesting to see a company do that with trains. Although I'm not so sure there'd be a market for it. It's a shame that you can't just buy a Comeng like you used to be able to buy a Hitachi. So level 4, they've had various upgrades over the years by different vendors. And so which upgrades occurred when and where? Well, when they first came out, they were called super trains. Now, previously the railways had labelled, I mean, back in the days, the first electric train, the Tates, were obviously named, well, you may not know this, I shouldn't say obvious, but they were named after Chief Railway Commissioner Thomas Tate. And the Harris trains were named after somebody Harris, I forget the first name. I feel like it's George, but I could be wrong. Then when the Hitachis came in, they were just originally known as Martin and Kings because that was the local bodybuilder. Or sometimes Hitachi didn't really come into a common use until a bit later. They were often referred to as just silvers because they were stainless steel, and the previous Harris trains had been just plain carbon steel, and so they were painted blue, and the Tates were obviously painted wood. But yeah, when the Comengers came out, they were called they couldn't call them silvers. People couldn't call them silvers because they were already silver trains, but had to be new. So I'd say it was definitely the point at which the general public stopped sort of having a general name for that type of trains. The super train name never really caught on, but yeah. This pizza is really nice, and I just ate a little bit of a burnt bit, but that was actually nice. So they came out, and I guess you could say that their first upgrade was in the early 2000s, when their first major upgrade was in the early 2000s when the network was being privatised. Now, despite the network being privatised and the private operators putting their logo and having influence over different things, at the end of the day, the trains always were and still are owned by VicTrack, the state government. And they were just leased to the private operators. But those private operators, M-Train and Connex, they had different ideas about how to refurbish them. Now, can I get this right? M-Train sent them to EDI Rail to get refurbished, and Connex sent them to Alstom. So the lower fleet numbers were sent to EDI, and the higher fleet numbers were sent to Alstom. And they were refurbished there, and they got slightly different appearances. The main difference was that the EDIs got, I'll call it a shaped front, whereas the Alstom refurbished models got a new flat front. They came out originally with a very flat front. Now, here's something you may not know, and I think I was possibly going to mention this at a later level, but here we go anyway. Underneath the front of the EDI Comengers, the original front actually still remains. So there's a little pop quiz for you. Now, initially do I want to mention this now or later? I think I'll mention it later. So the most recent upgrades are what have been referred to as the life extension, and they've sort of occurred in the past, I don't know, 3-4 years, something like that. Okay, Vandenbricks has just corrected me on the front business. Not all EDIs have it, but quite a few do. Okay. So the life extension project, I don't know the full details of like the non-obvious visual stuff, but visually they got a new paint job on the front, both the EDIs and the Alstoms, and there was 3 so-called stages. The first stage was really just the new paint job, and that was about it. Now there are no stage 1s left in service anymore, I believe. The last one was scrapped, or at least withdrawn for scrap not too long ago. Stage 2, you get everything in stage 1, so the new paint job, plus I think there's a little bit of underfloor renovations to make the electrics last a bit longer. But they also got gangways, like a bit of rubber surrounding the intercarriage gangway so that people don't fall out. Is that pizza number 2? This is an NPI test? No, this is pizza number 1. Party Music says 23 Comengers have been scrapped already. Okay. But yes, stage 3, everything stage 2 got. Definitely some under the hood upgrade, and yes, vestibules, the intercarriage connection vestibule is the correct term, but you know, just trying to use language that everyone understands. So stage 3 got the vestibules, the paint job, some under the hood changes, if you like, and they got new speakers and new passenger information displays on the inside of the train. So, yeah, they upgraded that and made it better. It's no longer a dot matrix screen, it's you know, full-fledged LCD. And yeah, that was the most recent upgrades, and stage 2 is still kicking around, but they'll be gone in a few years' time. Stage 3 will stay for another 10 years or so. And then, yeah, when the Extrapolis 2.0s really start rolling out, then the last 3 Commengers will go. Anyway, there's been a few comments and I've got to catch up on a few while still eating my pizza. JJ says, when I took my first trip to Melbourne, I had a trip out to Glen Waverley. The train I was on the 45th super train of the Met. I assume you mean that was the livery. I remember its titles very well. Okay, there you go. 45th Super Train. Brian says, as a kid, when the Hitachi entered service, I thought they needed to be sent back and painted. There you go. Okay, Vandenbrick says the lower the number he thinks, the more likely it is to have the original front. Interesting. And NPR test says those pizza ingredients would be well complemented with the drizzle of HP sauce. On some things, yes. On this pizza, no. No, definitely not. If there are any Italians here, I think they would be horrified by that suggestion. And yes, you're right, Party Music DJ, that the screens do look like the HCMTs, but they're not the same, they're different. Interestingly, one curious difference I've noticed is that on the Comengers, the position is live. Like you can, if it's between, say, Sandringham and Hampton stations, you can see it track along the screen as you go along. But in the HCMT, it just shows you a dot in the middle and then just sort of shows you when you're arriving, a different sort of animation, whatever, when you arrive at when you're arriving at a station. An NPI test is coming up with even worse ingredients to chuck on a fine Italian pizza. Vegemite, no. I'm not a fan of like crazy pizza ideas, but I like a good fine Neapolitan style pizza. Okay. Level 5 I've got down as identify different Comeng types. So that's really, oh, the camera went. Okay, no more bad pizza suggestions, please. This is putting me off my own pizza. Anyway, we've sort of talked about how to identify different stages of Comengers and the EDI versus the Alstoms. So, yeah. Level 6, disc brake versus tread brake. What are the two? What's the difference? Is one better than the other? Well, tread brakes, the way that they work is that they, and this is all going to sound quite obvious, but engineers like to name things in a functional manner. Tread brakes work by the brake. So, well, I guess I should just peel back a little bit and go, how do brakes work to begin with? Brakes work by having some friction material, and it doesn't actually have to be that grippy. It just has to retain a lot of heat. It just has to be good at coping with heat, really, because then you can just squeeze it harder and get more friction. But brakes work by, something squeezing on a rotating piece, be it the wheel, the tread of the wheel, or a separate disc, hint, hint. So tread brakes, the brake blocks grip onto the tread face of the wheel, whereas disc brakes have a separate disc that they grab. So that's cool, but what's the sort of functional difference between the two? Well, disc braking is a little smoother, a little easier to control, less chance of overheating. Yeah. But treads do the job. Now, tread brake Comeng models are always older than the disc brake models. I believe all of the disc brake models are all Alstom refurbished models. And there are some tread brake Alstom models, but no disc brake EDI models. JJ says, one thing I noticed, given Melbourne's Comeng EMUs and Brisbane's ones are almost of the same era, is that there was no door between the cab and the passenger space. I thought that was unusual. There is on a Comeng. There is a door between the cab and the passenger area. I'm not sure about Brisbane's EMUs. I don't know them to that level of detail. Also, the tread brake models being older, it has been proposed to retire them first, and hence another little quiz question, quiz information, whatever you want to call it, is that, correct me if I'm wrong, only disc brake Comenges are only stage 3, or possibly even stage 3 are only disc brake. Either way, it's planned which ones are going to be retired first. So let's open my phone again. Oh, go away. All right. Level 7, camshaft versus chopper. I'm getting a bit deeper here. Before we get to that, Wild YZF says, treads all day, baby. Okay. If you like treads, then sure. Some people get really, I've seen some people get really into like treads versus disc and which ones you prefer, and some people have like favourite Comeng numbers, and I've never really understood it. Is that the cricket chirping sounds in your background? No. You might hear my chair chirping a little bit. And yes, Vanderbrick's mentioned 400M, which was a favourite of certain people's. So yeah, camshaft versus chopper. The vast majority of the Comeng fleet are camshaft models. There was a select few that were chopper control. All of the choppers have been withdrawn. Now, if you want more detail of the difference between camshaft and chopper, either go view my Railway Electrics live stream or look up the Wikipedia page, because that'll give you a lot more detail than even I really know. And okay, I'm no electrical engineer, but still, it's kind of interesting to know these sort of things sometimes. So, a camshaft, if you know cars, you know that cars' engines have camshafts. Now, the camshaft in a car and the camshaft in a Comeng sort of serve different purposes. In a car, the camshaft is responsible for opening the valves to the cylinders to let in air or let exhaust out. In a Comeng, there are obviously electric trains. I hope you know that by now, if you're this far deep into what a Comeng is. And yeah, the camshaft in a Comeng is electrically controlled, and as it rotates, instead of opening valves, it sort of connects different circuits in different ways. So there's two main ways that you can have a circuit. You can have it in series or in parallel. I'm not going to go into the difference of what those two things mean, but just know that that's the difference. And if you want to go watch my Railway Electrics live stream, that's where I explain that sort of thing. But you can have combinations. So you can have like some series and some parallel when you've got multiple loads, in this case motors, and it's sort of think of it a bit like gears, where series is great for starting off, but not so great for top speed, whereas parallel is great for top speed, but not so great for starting off. So you sort of transition between the two, different levels of the two. But the point is that it's more or less set gears, right? And so it's not the most efficient, but it gets the job done. So a chopper then is still analog, but it's more of a continuous control. So instead of having just series or parallel to play with, you've sort of got a whole bunch of in-betweens. And you sort of do that by not sending a constant signal either way to the motors. You're sending a chopped sort of waveform, if you like. Hence the name chopper. And they use special resistors and whatnot to achieve that. All right, that's my pizza done. My first pizza, at least. I'm not going to go on to the other one for a little bit yet. Yeah, let me just go get myself some paper towel to wipe my hands down, and then I'll talk about the next level. All right. So I got myself some water as well. I see NPI test has mentioned PWM, and Brian has called it pulse width modulation. That is a similar concept that works in a different way. I guess chopper, you could say, was a precursor to PWM. PWM is more of a digital control. Chopper is still analog. And modern trains absolutely use PWM, but not Comengers. JJ says, I refer back to the early 1980s. The Comeng units only had a large glass window on the right-hand side where the guard would be. There was no door. So the door was a later addition, was it? Okay, there you go. You learn something new every day. NPR test also says, please publish the pizza recipes, sir. It's not really my recipe. What do you call it? I got the dough recipe from a video by Vincenzo's Plate, but the actual recipe was made by a guy in Sydney, I think, an Italian-Australian, who won a competition for best Neapolitan pizza. So that's where I got the dough recipe from. And the golfing noises, yes, I thought you might hear that. The toppings, if you look up, I got the inspiration for the toppings from a local pizza restaurant, but as I said, it's really just olive oil for the base, and then a few drops of truffle oil, then garlic, oregano, basil, mozzarella, prosciutto, mushrooms. I think that's it. Maybe a bit of black pepper. Okay. Brian says, I'll ask to see if we can get some photos in the Comeng appreciation group. Okay. Yeah, interesting. Could be interesting to see the lack of door. Okay, so yeah, that's as far as I'm going to take it with top loader versus camshaft. As I said, if you want to learn more detail, then go for it. You can research that in your own time. So, level 8, what led up to their introduction and how well were they received? Well, throughout the 1970s, the railways went through a bit of an underinvestment period. You had the Hitachis, and they were right, but they were relatively cheap, and compared to the Comeng, not as well built. Although the Hitachis still managed to live on for well beyond their original due date. But yeah, so the railways had sort of been underinvested in, and the City Loop was about to open, so they wanted new trains for the City Loop as well. That had been under construction for about 10 years. And yeah, I guess the railways wanted something well built but new, so they introduced the Comeng trains, or the super trains as they were known. at the time. How well were they received by the general public? They were well liked. Today, I would say that while the enthusiasts certainly have their fascination with them, the general public do not. The general public just see them as old trains now. That's what's going to happen. The current fleet of HCMTs, how will they be received in 40 years' time? Probably old and in need of replacement. So there's something. I don't think there's too much more to say. Vandenbroek says, new trains for a big new tunnel replacing an older train. It goes full circle, I suppose. They weren't actually the Comengers. Oh, no, okay, you're right. I was going to say my mistake. The Hitachis were built to replace the swing door motors, and the Comengers were built to replace the Tates. And of course, there was a transition period where Tates were in service as well as Comengers, but the more Comengers or super trains came on board, the more that the Tates disappeared. JJ says Hitachis were good, solidly built machines. They were very cheaply built. Electric trains in general are relatively simple, so at least the older ones were relatively simple, so they were reliable, and so you can get the impression that, they're solidly built or whatever. But and actually the Hitachi, the actual electrical equipment was well built by Hitachi in Japan. The rest of the train was more built on the cheap. They weren't, I don't think they were as solid as you may fondly remember them. Party Music says, it's like the N class is being replaced. Yes, similar story. So, level 9, the legacy of privatisation. Does it still cause problems? No, not really. It doesn't cause any problems anymore. It certainly used to. Whoever authorised this to begin with was stupid, but when they were refurbished by the two different companies, electrically they didn't have to be compatible, so they weren't. And so the network was forever split, and I guess at the time they thought, it's always going to be split. It's competition. Not really, but we'll get into the failings of privatisation in another live stream. They had to be retro-modified to be electrically compatible, but they have been for ages, and they can run anywhere. Either type can run anywhere on the system. I say can. I know there's a lot of the network that doesn't get regular Comengers anymore, but yeah. The only thing that you can really see the legacy of privatisation is in the slightly different interior layouts, slightly different fronts. Here's a little tidbit, if you like. Not all, but some EDI Comengers pronounce some station names incorrectly. I'm not sure about the famous or infamous reservoir versus reservoir, but I know for a fact that some EDI Comengers stuff up the suburb of Paran and instead say it as Pararan. So if you're on the Sandringham line and you're on an EDI Comeng, keep an ear out, because you might hear now arriving at Pararan. And you can go, huh? Where's Pararan? I thought it was Paran. It is Paran. But yeah. So NGR Test says, is that a for better travelling sign behind you? I remember them from the Doors and the Tates in the early 80s. Yes, it is. There you go. It's a reproduction of the original sign. The guy who produced them has recently passed away, I believe. But my friend Michael Sainsbury was friends with the guy who made them, and he's got a few left. So if you get in touch with Michael Sainsbury on Facebook, I'm sure he would be happy to. You can purchase one from him if you like. I think they're like $5 or something like that. Stephen, hello. Okay. So finally, level 10, hidden things you may not know. We've already mentioned one, which is the Met face under some EDI Comengers. But here's another little tidbit, is that the Comengers, despite their flashy stainless steel exterior, actually have a few pieces of wood in their construction. The two places that I know it exists is under the floor. I believe there's some wood, and the vestibule doorways. If you have a look next time you're on a Comeng, the vestibule doorway is painted timber. So, just a little tidbit for you. I'm trying to think what other little things you may not know. You can find builder's plates on the inside of the carriage that say. You can find a Comeng builder's plate, and you can also find a Alstom or EDI builder's plate to say, who refurbished it, and it'll say, refurbished by Alstom or refurbished by EDI Rail or whatever. Vandenbroek says, oh yeah, I've seen unpainted raw wood on one before, looked very out of place. Where did you see that? I'm guessing the wood was damaged in some way and then they replaced it, but if you saw it in a modern thing. Tidbits. I guess on, I don't know if there are any Comengers left with this seating pattern, this seating fabric, but certainly before the most recent refurbishments, the old seat cover fabric had a bunch of random letters on it, and they're actually not random. They are C-O-N-N-E-X, Connex, the old operator. So, yeah, guess you can call that a tidbit. Anyone else got any other tidbits that they want to share? Hidden things you may not know about Comengers? Because I think that's about it from my thingos. Vanderbilt says, Stephen was with me, I think we were in the City Loop. And Stephen says, I've been lucky to see a Comeng set with newly refurbished bogies look very clean and shiny. Yeah, I've seen that as well. And Vanderbilt says he may have a photo, but he doesn't know where it is. Jeez. Oh man. Well, I'm right. You just gotta laugh. Oh, I'm just laughing makes it worse. Oh my god. All right. Oh, water when it goes down the wrong way. I should have known better. Let's drink water properly this time and not try to breathe it in. Someone's home. Okay. Hang on a sec. Hello.
Hi.
I'm just doing a live stream, but feel free to have some of that pizza.
Oh, thank you.
Wait. All right, we're back. Stephen says there is 672M, which is a prototype Comeng carriage that has two different styles of the Met decals and seating patterns on each side. Yeah, that's a good tidbit. I know that carriage is in East Block at the moment. I believe that they were contemplating, and I guess you could call this another common tidbit, is that they were contemplating modifying a couple sets to be a bit better suited to longer distances, and they were going to introduce a semi-suburban run out to Warragul and back when Warragul was still electrified. But then Warragul stopped being electrified and the plan fell through. Well, Stephen says, sadly, all the windows and doors are removed and it's exposed outside in Newport workshops with the interior in bad shape. Yeah. And Brian also says there is proof that Floyd is not a flounder. I guess you could say that. Party Music says Comengers have two different couplers. One is for coupling up to a loco or something. No. Comengers have a standard, what you call Scharfenberg coupler, which is common for every electric train since the Comeng, actually. I don't think, the Hitashi's just had a normal knuckle coupler, but the Comengers introduced the Scharfenberg coupler, which is a type of coupler which is good for passenger trains because it automatically connects electrics and air, but and can be great. It's great for automatic coupling and decoupling, low speed as well, but it's not so good for. It doesn't have the same strength as a knuckle coupler, so that's why you don't see it on freight trains or any sort of loco hauled stuff. But if you need to couple a Comeng to a loco for one reason or another, you can get what's called a transition coupler, which is just a piece that has a Scharfenberg on one end and a knuckle coupler on the other. But they're generally kept with the locos, not so much with the Comeng. Well, maybe it is kept on the. Oh, okay. Yeah, Comeng have transition couplers under the cabs. Okay, there you go. I did actually know that. I'd just forgotten. I guess I'll tell a little Comeng story for you. This was back, I think 2017. A Comeng early in the morning ripped down the overhead wires near Brighton Beach, and so they had to rescue it somehow. Now, instead of sending a loco down to rescue it, they instead sent a pair of sprinters that were otherwise due to go to Frankston to swap over for the Stony Point run. But they decided that those were more readily available than locos. So funnily enough, they sent sprinters down to Brighton Beach to push the Comeng back into Sandringham sidings, and the sprinters also stayed in Sandringham sidings for the rest of the day, or not quite the rest of the day, I think, and they returned back to the city and ultimately went back to Frankston. And so I've got photos of a Comeng, of a sprinter parked next to a Comeng in Sandringham Station. There you go. Sprinters on the Sandringham line. Let me see if I can quickly find that photo. I can. All right. Let me share my screen in a second. Ta-da. There you go. Sprinters parked next to a disabled Comeng. And the photo's a bit blurry, but that's a dead pantograph that was cut off. I think that was the troublesome one. You can see it looks a bit bad. That one looks semi-alright. Oh yeah, buses replace trains between Sandringham and Elstonwick. And there's a little bonus for you, a 3-car, I was going to say Sprinter, but no, it's a Siemens at Sandringham. And a 3-car Comeng at Sandringham. They ran a few of these sort of services at, what was that, 7:30 p.m, wow. I thought it was earlier in the afternoon, but I mean, this is February, so. And yeah, whoa, look at that. Anyway, that's that. Read a few comments before we leave. Party Music says, I've been in the cab of a Comeng from Belgrave to the city. That's cool. Can't do that anymore, unless you're a driver. Vandenbrick says, the Sprinter was probably easier than getting a loco out of Dynon and having to start it and negotiate the yards. Yeah. Although I think at the time Metro still had the contract CFCLA locos, so they would have just had to get them out of Melbourne Yard, not Dynon. But still. And Party Music says, I saw 393M at Newport years ago. All right. Okay. I can see the live stream is lagging a little bit behind where I am. So, oh, okay, it's not as far behind as I thought it was. Anyway, if nobody's got anything else to say, then it's past the hour mark and I'll head off. Closing remarks. Next live stream. I know I typically do every 2 weeks, but I'm quite busy at the moment, so I'm going to push it back to a month from now. So let me tell you or 4 weeks, I'll say. 2, 3, 4. And what's this? 1, 2. Oh, this is what my problem is. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Friday the 14th of October is tentatively when my next live stream is going to be. That could very well change because that's getting into busy time with uni for me. So, yeah, we'll see. It was a bit of a push to get this one on tonight, but I did it, so there you go. If I can't do it in a month, then I'll probably just take a break from live streams altogether until November or whenever I finish my exams. And finally, Vandenbrick's Stephen says there should be an 11th level, which is knowledge on everything made by Commonwealth Engineering. Well, there you go, Stephen. That's your task for next live stream, is learn everything there is to know about Commonwealth Engineering. I want you to be able to recite the books off by heart to me. And Vandenbrick suggests that level 11 should also include 400M and its law. But I think you already know that, don't you, Stephen? All right. That's about it. So Stephen and Oscar can discuss their Comeng knowledge outside of the live stream. Anyway, if you happen to be on the Triple K2 Traralgon tour next weekend, you will see me on that. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next live stream, whenever that is. All right, thanks. See ya.